everybody.
Yeah, but I know you can't see.
Well, I went to night school. Anyway, well, last week we ended with chapter 4, but just a brief overview. We watched them come across the Jordan. The Ark of the Covenant went ahead with the priest and stood in when their feet hit the water started parting. It held the water back until the entire assembly went across the river. Now, the assembly it's the first time that the people led the way. They went into the land first. And when all of the people went into the land, and I think they were led by Reuben, Gad, and the half-tribe of Manasseh because they had already settled and they were the ones that was going to be the guards going into the land. Although it doesn't say that, but it seems that's what they were doing. So when the ark, as long as the ark and the priests were in the water was divided. And the last that came across was the Ark of the Witness. And once the Ark of the Witness was through the water and the priests came out, the water came back to their banks and started running again. So we didn't cover too much about the spies, but when we go into, I actually copied my notes this week, and so see where I'm at here. So anyway, I'm going to turn to chapter 5 in Joshua. Oh man, I got my pages stuck together here, guys. Chapter 5, okay, we're going to see, this is about Jericho. Well, let me see, maybe get this right. Okay, I take that back. Okay, so in chapter 5, we're going to see that about verse, well, I'll just do it real quickly here. I'm not going to read it, but so they're in the land, and now they found out that all of these people, the Amorites and all the people in the land, their hearts have softened or melted because of the power that they've seen. They've heard about the crossing of the Red Sea, and they've seen what's happened with the crossing of the Jordan, and also the battles that they won against the two kings on the east side of the Jordan. So they're set pretty well. The people are pretty content. However, at this time, the Creator gives Yeshua the command to circumcise all of the men. Now we remember that coming out of Egypt, Moses had circumcised all of the men as they came out of Egypt. But all of those men had died in the wilderness because of the time that they brought back the bad report when they were sent in to spy in the land in Numbers 13, I think. And so from that time on, all of those people that were originally circumcised had died off, so none of them were alive. So now we have a brand new crop of people from the 40 years in the wilderness. And so he's there to circumcise them, and there's a reason for it. Because as you're going to read down, that they're going to do the Passover during this time, and also at the time that they started eating the food inside of the land, because he said whatever the stored food was, that's what they were going to eat. The manna stopped on that day. So they've been getting manna for 40 years, and then on that day it stopped. So this is a little bit away from the ark, but it just brings you around so they set up their camp in Gilgal, and it came to be when Yeshua was verse 12, 13. And it came to be when Yeshua was by Jericho that he lifted his eyes and looked and saw a man standing opposite him with a sword drawn in his hand. and Joshua, I'll use Yeshua because that's what his name is, went to him and said to him, "Are you for us, or are you an adversary?" And he said, "No, for I have come as the captain of the host of Yahuwah." So remember when Moses was told that he would have somebody leading him all the way through the desert, and that would have been, some scriptures call them angels. The messenger of Yahuwah was there all the time with him coming through the desert, and he's getting the same angel, although it's captain of the host, but he's getting that same measure. You're assuring him that he will be leading them through the times when they're taking back the land. And it starts with, in verse 6, with what goes on in Jericho.
Chapter 6.
I'm sorry, chapter 6, yeah. Well, lots of numbers. Anyway, and chapter 6 is about the incident with Jericho, and it's very interesting about this. So he gives them I'm just going to give you a little bit of overview on this real quick. And so he's telling them that you're going to walk around Jericho 7 days, and you're going to be led. The priests are going to be in the midst. They're going to have people in front of the priest and people behind the priest. It's the guard that's carrying they have the trumpets and they have the Ark of the Covenant. So for 6 days they walk around one time. On the 7th day they go around 7 times, and then you all know the story. So this is the Ark of the Covenant that they're carrying around. This is the box that Moses made that has the 2 tablets that Moses cut out and Yahuwah wrote on. And it also has the Torah of Moses that he wrote on the side of it, on the side of the ark. So when we see something that hit me, when we see everybody talk about the Torah of Moses, what are they talking about? I'm not going to ask you.
I'm about to take a nap then.
Okay, you just had one. The Torah of Moses is basically the book of Deuteronomy, and it's all of the covenants. It's a review of all the covenants, the commandments, the teaching and instructions that they were given throughout their trips through the wilderness. It covers everything that they did. Remember, he didn't live in Genesis, and he only lived in part of Exodus, the last part of Exodus from the time out and the time of the Pharaoh incident. So everything before that was translated to him by the Creator, okay? So he copied what the Creator said. And then from then on, he was writing what he was told to do throughout the Exodus of Egypt and through Leviticus, Numbers, and then coming into Deuteronomy. It's his basic thing that he did was what I would consider the Torah of Moses. When people says the Torah of Moses, you can find all the laws, all the rules, everything that Moses wrote about the marriage, divorcing, everything's in there in that deal. And that's what I think the Torah of Moses was. I don't think the entire book was wrote, although we know that it was handed down and it went through, and at some time it was put into the full writing of it, or we wouldn't have it today, somewhere along the line. But the basics of the Torah of Moses is that Deuteronomy. And it's the same thing that Joshua had when he gets to the end of his days and he reads everything to the people when they get to Shiloh. So anyway, in 6, we all understand what happened, right? They walked around 6 days, and on the 7th day they went 7 times around. And when the trumpet sounded and there was a loud shout and the walls came down, and end of Jericho, right? Okay. So, right after this, now you have to remember that everything that was in Jericho was to be destroyed, except for the bronze, the silver, the iron, and the gold, the precious metals. And those were to put into the treasury of the priesthood, into the tabernacle for the priest to use. And then the first thing again like they were at Mount Sinai. You can guys look back and think about it when they were at Mount Sinai. After they had they told Moses, we don't want the Creator to talk to us because we're afraid we'll die. So whatever you say, we will do. Okay? So they agreed to something that they didn't even know they were going to agree to before they were told what they were agreeing to. And we're still bound by that today. But anyway, the first thing they did was the golden calf incident. After that happened. So you guys all remember that. Going into this, the first thing that happens, somebody decides to pocket some of the loot that they took out of them. So reading through chapter 7, we can see this Achan, son of Carmi, son of Zabadi, son of Zerik, of the tribe of Yehudah, took that which was under the ban, and the displeasure of Yahuwah was upon the people. Now, Joshua wasn't made aware of this, and so he's taking his people in to fight, to take in Ai, the land of, it's up by Shechem in Bethel area. And so they go in to battle out, but because the Creator's not with them, because he has this displeasure with them, they have no protection. That captain was not there to lead them in. So anyway, going through that, I got to get past these because I want to get back to the ark. So finally, when they in chapter 7, you got the displeasure of Yahuwah in verse 1 and 1 to 5, and then in 6, we hear okay. And Yeshua tore his garments and fell on the earth, and his face before the ark of the covenant, or the ark of Yahuwah, or the ark of Elohim, however it's listed in your scriptures. But it's the same ark, it's the ark of the covenant. And they fell down before it until evening, both he and the elders of Israel, and they put dust on their heads. And Yeshua said, O Master Yahuwah, why have you brought this people here through the Jordan at all to give us into the hands of the Amorites, to destroy us? If only we had been content to stay beyond the Jordan. So this sounds like a repeat of exactly what the people said when they came out of Egypt. Why did you bring us out here to kill us? Why didn't we stay in Egypt where it was cool, you know? So bringing in that they're relying on this Ark of the Covenant to the point that they almost are worshiping it. In a sense, they're using it as a worship thing, in my opinion, okay? And so they find out, they're told of what happened, so they have to go through the process of cleansing the people again by taking this guy that kept this banded items, and they had to follow his instructions about taking everything out of it, burning everything that he has, him and his children, and put a pile of rocks on top of it so that everybody will remember this as his way of cleansing the people, okay? So they get from 7 on, the Ark of the Covenant is leading them, the Ark of Yahuwah, the Ark of the Covenant, is going to carry them on through into the land and carry them into the battle and to win, okay? So they displace those people up in, is that how you pronounce that, Aya? Or is it just A?
AI.
A? Must
Like
be
Canada? A?
Must be a Canadian thing, eh? Okay, we can do that. So anyway, so going into chapter 8, and I'm going fast here because we're not hitting a lot of the Ark of the Covenant all the way through here. But in chapter 8, so after this thing is cleansed and the people are ready to go, the Creator's speaking to Moses, and he says, and Yahuwah said to Yeshua, do not be afraid nor discouraged. Take all the soldiers with you. Rise up and to see, I have given you the hand of the sovereign of A, and his people, and his city, and his land. So you shall do as in the sovereign, as you did to Jericho, and its sovereign. Only its spoil and its livestock you take as plunder for yourselves. So this time he's letting them warriors and the families that fight take the plunder. Keep looking here. So in 8, if somebody wants to read, I don't like to read, so in 8:33 to 35, the Ark of the Covenant, okay?
(33 through 35).
Yeah.
In chapter 8. Then all Israel, including their leaders, officials, and judges, stood on either side of the ark in front of the Kohanim, who were Leviim, and who carried the ark for the covenant of Yahweh. The foreigners were there along with the citizens. Half of the people were in front of Mount Gerizim, and half of them in front of Mount Evil, as Moshe the servant of Yahweh had ordered them earlier in connection with blessing the people of Israel. After this, he read all of the words of the Torah, the blessings and the curse, and according to everything written in the book of the Torah. There was not a word of everything Moshe had ordered that Joshua did not read before all Israel assembled, including the women, the little ones, and the foreigners living with them.
Okay. So once he got to that point, he did almost the same thing that Moses did when he was coming out of the land, to remind him of these covenants and commandments and the teachings and instructions of the Creator, and he read it to all the people. And I think he does it when they're talking about at Mount Gerizim. Later on, we'll see that prophecy that Moses told them that they needed to do when they went into the land will take place. So that's a little later down the right. So anyway, in 9. So from chapter 9 to chapter 17 is pretty much the taking of the land, the drawing of lots, dividing the land. In chapter 14, we find Yeshua. We want to get some ideas on him. We find that Yeshua was 40 years old when they were sent in to spy out the land in Numbers 13. I always thought he was 20 when he left Egypt, but according to this, he was 40 years old. Shows you what I read and miss and what I've heard and done. So anyway, he was 40 years old when they were sent out to spy the land in Numbers, and at this point he's 45 years old. So they've been in the land 5 years now, or pretty much the 5-year term of all of these events that have been taking place. And so he's 45 years old currently, so he's been in the land 5 years. And as he speaks, he's 85 years old. So this guy's pretty much up there. He's kind of like Moses was 80 when he left Egypt. And so this guy's 85 years old.
You can relate.
Huh?
You can relate.
I'm pretty close to it, but I bet you he walks better than I do. And I bet he's a lot smarter than me. But anyway, so that part was I threw that in there because it was pretty interesting, because sometimes we don't look at these things as people. We look at them, these guys, as something that are, I don't know, legends or something. And these were just people, but they had this strength. They didn't have all I know what it is, though. They don't have all of these additives to the foods and stuff that we eat. So we're all falling apart, and those people were living to be 110, 120, 130 years old, whatever. So anyway, moving right along, in 8, let's move up to 18, because I'm trying to stay with the, we see that in chapter 1 of 8, or verse 18, or chapter 18, verse 1, if you'll turn there. John, you always turn there. Okay, chapter 8, verse 1. And Yehuda said to Yeshua, "Do not be afraid, nor be discouraged. Take all the soldiers with you, and rise up and go to Ai," which we just covered. And, I'm sorry, yeah.
Slow
Excuse
down.
me, I'm going backwards.
Slow down.
Okay. So from 9 to 17 is basically what I said. It's the making of lots. It's occupying the land. It's dividing the land up and so forth. So if we got moved, I said chapter 8. So move to chapter 18:1, so we can get back to where we're supposed to be on this arc. So, 18:1, and all the congregation of the children of Israel assembled at Shiloh, and they let the tent of meeting dwell there, and the land was subdued before them. So now we're talking about setting the tabernacle. They've reached Shiloh and they're putting up the tabernacle. I don't think they're talking about the tent of Moses. I think they're talking about the tent of meetings, the Mishkan, the dwelling place. And again, they continue to set up dividing the land by casting lots for the different lands. And Yeshua, as we read down into this, verse 9, so when the men went and passed through the land and described it in a book in the 7 portions by cities, they came to Yeshua at the camp of Shiloh, and Yeshua cast lots for them in Shiloh before Yahuwah, and there Yeshua divided the land of the children of Israel according to their portions. So we've made it to Shiloh, okay? So that's their base now. So the Ark of the Covenant would be there because remember, the Ark of the Covenant was always 3 days ahead of them in their moves wherever they went. So the Ark of the Covenant's there. If the tent of the meeting's set up, the people come in and they set up Shiloh, and I think that's the last place that the tabernacle was placed when they were in the land. I haven't found anything in the scriptures that would change it, except when you go to Genesis or Revelations, and you might see it. Would you agree on that, Dave?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, good. Because I tried figuring out if there was any other place it could be, but from now on, the temple and the tabernacle kind of get mixed. It's kind of brought to light like it's one thing, and it's not. There's the Ark of the Covenant, the tent of meetings that was Moses, that Joshua took over, and he lived in it, and it said even during the 40 years he never left that tent, if I remember the scriptures right. So we're going to get to the, okay. So 19 and 22 is a continuing, chapters 19 and 22 is a continue dividing and possessing the land. And the final instructions come about in chapter 23, 1 to 24, 33. The final instructions, Yeshua dies at 110 years old. He's 30 years in the land. Eleazar dies, and Phinehas, his son, would become the high priest. So from there, we're going to go into Judges and staying with, we're not going to do the whole book of Joshua, everything that happened in there. We're following the tabernacle, okay? So in Judges, we have to go to chapter 20 and verse 26, 28. So if you all turn there. Is everybody there ahead of me? I was putting little tabs in here and they all fell out when I took my transcripts out. So shows you I'm a very efficient person. Okay, chapter 20. Somebody read verse 26, 28.
So all the Israelites, the whole army, went up to Bethel. They wept and sat there before Yahuwah. They did not eat anything that day until evening. They offered up burnt sacrifices and tokens of peace to Yahuwah. The Israelites asked Yahuwah for the ark of his covenant was there in those days.
Okay.
So you want me to read 28 as well?
Yeah, go ahead.
Phinehas, son of Eleazar, son of Aaron, was serving Yahuwah in those days. Should we once more march out to fight the Benjamites, our brothers, or should we quit? Yahuwah said, attack, for tomorrow I will hand them over to you.
Okay. So this is the first time and the last time we see the Ark of the Covenant in Judges, okay? So again, they're going into battle at Bethel. Oh no, I'm sorry. They're there, and they're to meet with Yahuwah that fast on that until that evening, and they offered burnt offerings and peace offerings before Yahuwah. And we just read that. And the offerings before Yahuwah, and the children of Israel asked Yahuwah. The Ark of the Covenant Elohim was there in those days, and Phinehas, son of Eleazar, son of Aaron, stood before it again. So this is something that was happening with the tribes of Benjamin in there, and this is the only time in Judges that we see the Ark of the Covenant. Is when they're looking for advice, and it's because there was this battle going on with Benjamin over. You'd have to read the whole book on it, but so I'm trying to keep you that how it's moving along. So now we're going to come into some stuff with Samuel, 1 Samuel, and in verse 1 or chapter 1 of Samuel. I hope I'm getting all of them. I don't think I've missed any of them. In the first verse of chapter 1, verse 9. And I'll read this. It says, and Cana rose up after eating and drinking in Shiloh, and Ali, the priest, was sitting on the seat on the doorpost of the Hekel. And mine has in parentheses temple, but we know there's no temple there, okay? I think I'll call Lou White up and ask him how he figured that one out. But anyway, so we're talking about the Hekel. They're talking about the dwelling place, which would be the tabernacle in Shiloh. And so maybe if we go up to the front of this, because it's got a little bit of point. So I'm going to read from verse 1, or chapter 1, verse 1. And there was a certain man of the Ramathian Tosphan of the mountains of Ephraim, and his name was Elkanah, son of Yerokam, son of, boy, I don't like reading these things, and son of Aliu, son of Tuhu, son of Tusok, an Ephraimite. So we're talking about people in the tribe of Ephraim, okay? Hope we don't have to go through any more of these names. And he had 2 wives, and the name of one wife was Kanana, A.K. Hannah, also known as Hannah. And the name of the other was Penelope, or Penelope. Wait, that sounds better anyway. And Penelope had children, but Hannah had no children. Now, this man went up to the city year by year to worship and to slaughter to Yahuwah. Now, when he's talking about that, this is where the Ark of the Witness comes in, because we're talking about Shiloh. But the tent of meetings and the Ark of the Covenant is up there at the same time at this point. And the man went up to the city year by year to worship it and slaughter to Yahuwah, to the host in Shiloh. And the 2 sons of Hophni and Phinehas, the priest of Yahuwah, were there. And when they came from Elkanah to make an offering, he gave portions to Penelope and his Asha and to all of her sons and daughters. But although he loved Hannah, he gave only the portion to Hannah, only one portion to Hannah, because Yahuwah had shut up her womb. Moreover, her rivals also provoked her greatly to make her irritable because of Jehu and shut up her womb. Yeah, does this sound like a familiar thing? It goes back, if you want to go back to Jacob, when he first, with his 2 wives and 2 concubines and the problems they were having there, it's almost the same thing.
It's almost like God's controlling who's born and when they're born, huh?
I would kind of put something into that.
Yeah.
You know, it's, well, if you look through here, everything is pointed to who he wants to be, where he wants him to be.
When he wants them to be there.
And it's got to be there when he wants him to be there. So that's why I'm reading this, because I think this is very interesting. And her husband, okay, and her husband said to her, Hannah, why do you weep? Why do you not eat? And why is your heart sad? Am I not better to you than 10 sons? And Hannah rose up after eating and drinking in Shiloh, and while Eli the priest was sitting on the seat by the doorpost of the Hekel. So now Hekel is dwelling place, and again they throw in here temple, like I said. I don't think the guy's sitting by the doorpost of the tabernacle, because they can't go inside of there. They wouldn't be able to go inside of to see it. So I'm thinking it's about that tent of Moses that's out front where they have the Ark of the Covenant. That's just my thinking. But I could be wrong, and you know, maybe it's not really that. It's just so anyway. And she was bitter in life and prayed to Yahuwah and wept greatly. And she made a vow and said, O Yahuwah Most High, if you would indeed look on the affliction of your female servant and remember me not, forget your female servant, but shall give your female servant a male child, then I shall give him to Yahuwah all the days of his life, and let no razor come upon his head. This is it's just an interesting little point here. So she has already asked for the son, and we see this other times in the scriptures. When we go back to Sarai, before she became Sarah, and she was waiting for a son, and she was told she was going to have one, but she got anxious, and you know, we know the story about Ishmael and Isaac. So some of these things are like, it's kind of like giving us a picture way before we see it. You come to it, and you can kind of tie this together a little bit, because who was the chosen one with Sarah? We know that was Isaac. And now we're getting one here that's pointed to, that's supposed to be, that's going to come to be something very important, okay? So anyway, going to 4:1, 1 Samuel chapter 4. We're going to breeze right through this. This is just all leads up to what we just heard. Get the right verses, so I don't have to read everything. Go to 4:17. No, wait, I'm going to go before that. Should go all the way through this. Okay, I'll start at verse 1. Okay, somebody read from verse 1 to verse 11, if they would, please. John, you're there.
And the word of Samuel came to all Israel. Now Israel went out to battle against the Philistines and encamped beside Ebenezer, and the Philistines encamped in Aphek. Then the Philistines put themselves in battle array against Israel, and when they joined battle, Israel was defeated by the Philistines, who killed about 4,000 men of the army in the field. And when the people had come into camp, the elders of Israel said, why has Yah defeated us today before the Philistines? Let us bring the Ark of the Covenant of Yah from Shiloh to us. And when it comes among us, it may save us from the hand of our enemies. So the people sent to Shiloh that they might bring from there the Ark of the Covenant of Yah of hosts, who dwells between the cherubim. That kind of narrows it down, doesn't it? And the two sons of Eli, Hophni and Phinehas, were there with the Ark of the Covenant of Yah. And when the Ark of the Covenant of Yah came into the camp, all Israel shouted so loudly that it shook the earth. Now when the Philistines heard the noise of the shout, they said, what does the sound of this great shout in the camp of the Hebrews mean? Then they understood that the Ark of Yah had come into the camp. So the Philistines were afraid, for they said, Elohim has come into the camp. And they said, woe to us, for such a thing has never happened before. Woe to us. Who will deliver us from the hands of these mighty gods? These are gods who struck the Egyptians in with all the plagues in the wilderness. Be strong, and conduct yourselves like men, you Philistines, and you who do not become servants of the Hebrews, as they have been to you. Conduct yourselves like men and fight. So the Philistines fought, and Israel was defeated, and every man fled to his tent. There was a very great slaughter, and there fell of Israel 30,000 foot soldiers. Also the Ark of Elohim was captured, and the two sons of Eli, Hophni and Phinehas, died.
So, bringing this in, now, I brought this up before, the children of Israel, we're looking at more of the ark as the means of the support, kind of in a worshiping way, rather than looking to the Creator himself. I think to me it looks like they were just putting all of their faith into that ark, because they knew the history. They knew that ark led them all the way from coming out of Egypt. They knew that it was always out front, and as long as it was out front, things were good, and that they knew Yahuwah was out there with them. So for some reason, and it's because if we go all the way back to Joshua, when Joshua died and the people that were in his generation died, a generation after that forgot about all the things that, like that third, fourth generation, thought of all the things that happened, went away, so they started not paying attention, I guess, to the fullness of the covenants and commandments, the teaching and instructions. John?
It's almost like these generations were more visual than they were walking by sight and not by faith like the older generations were.
Very good, because think about where we are today.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So when you do about it, just put yourself out there. So we look and see what's happening out there, but do we really understand what's happening and who's in control of it, or do we give the credit to the Creator for taking care of what's going on out there,
right,
and having the faith that He will do it? And I think in the whole world there's a lot of lacking there. We know that because of all the things that are happening in the schools. The other day they just got a deal for the city to put a deal that the kids that they're not mandated to salute the flag anymore. If they don't want to, they don't. So right away you see some little guy standing in front like that, I ain't doing it. And it just goes through everything in our society today.
Right.
What is it? 80% of people say they're Christians or of Christian belief or of a belief of some sort, and they figure about 10% of them have Bibles and 1% read them. So I don't know, something like that. So sounds pretty good. But anyway, so this is showing you that they brought this in there. Boy, they were all, yelling off their heads and having a good time, and this earth is shaking from all the noise they're making. And then so they go into battle, probably not full-hearted, but thinking we don't have to do much, just walk out there and He's going to take care of them for us. And so I mean, I'm looking at, maybe that's what happened, but I'm sure they didn't go out there with the intent battle that they would have normally had. And then we had the two priests, Phinehas, and I don't know if there's a lot of years difference there. I don't know if it's the same Phinehas, because I'd have to really study that. But it's very important that because his name is Phinehas, and Phinehas was the high priest, okay? So anyway, boy, I flipped my pages crazy here.
Well, while you're looking, let me just make a comment on
Sure.
John, in verse 4. So the people went to Shiloh, and from there they carried the Ark of the Covenant of Yahuwah of hosts. Now, which ark were they carrying?
The people?
Yeah.
Well, the people weren't there.
Which ark are they talking about there?
No, they're talking about the Ark of the Covenant.
Ark of the Covenant.
Yeah, they have to be the Ark of the Covenant. Because nobody could touch the other one except the Aaron line of the priesthood, or the Levite priest.
Very good.
So that's where we have to keep this
Yeah.
into,
All it's doing because people get tripped up with, the Lord of hosts who sits on the cherubim. Then they think it's the Ark of the Witness, and it's not. It's just describing whose ark this is. It's the Ark of the
Oh, yeah.
Covenant.
yeah, I think John made that point. It kind of narrows it down to
Yeah.
who the Ark is, but it's the one that sits, it's the Creator, the Yahuwah, or the Elohim that sits between the two cherubim. It's his Ark, but it's not the Ark of the Witness, it's the Ark of the Covenant.
And I agree with you that the children of Israel at this time made this ark into an idol. That's why I term it. They made it into an idol.
And when you look at this, but you gotta remember there was power in that ark.
Yeah, absolutely.
There was true power in that ark. When we read on, which we'll read on, and we'll find out when that the Philistines took the ark and they put it in the temple of Dagon.
Mm-hmm.
And so this conflict between these gods, because they have this wonderful god Dagon and all of his companions, and when they come back in the morning, Dagon's on his face, bowing down the Ark of the Covenant. So they put him back in place, and I'm short. Anyway, and so they come back next morning, the head and the hands are cut off, and it scares them. So there's power in the ark. It didn't move itself. We know that.
Right.
Yeah. Go ahead, John.
But you were talking about the way that the Israelites were fighting in this battle. They were expecting Yah to fight for them, just as he's done so many times before.
Absolutely.
And got shocked when he didn't.
Because of the way they were in their
Exactly.
lives.
Exactly.
Because you have to go back to, you even read, when you go through Judges and you read, all of the problems in Judges was because of bad judges. Who were the judges? Weren't they part of the priesthood?
No,
Huh? Some of them were, weren't they? No,
Just
okay.
one.
Huh?
just one.
Just one, Samuel? Okay, so Samuel started out, but when it gets down the line, it gives you a picture of all of these judges they had, so it goes almost like they did with kings. You had 20 years of a good judge. I didn't calculate how many years in that interim there from Joshua. I should have done that, between Joshua and Samuel. Did you ever do
I did, but I can't remember.
it has to be quite a few years.
It is.
It's gonna be a couple hundred years anyway. Because they had 20 years and 30 years and 40 years of good stuff. And you had all these different judges in there. That, Samson was a judge in there for, I forget how many years, and Deborah was there for 40 years. So when you start looking at that, those times were good because the judges were good. And it
Right.
wasn't because the people were good, it was because the judges were putting forth what they were doing to make the people kind of being an obedient line with the creators, with the teaching and instructions. Would you agree to that?
Yeah, the judges weren't priests, but they were selected by Yah.
Right. Everybody was selected by God.
And they were selected because it had gotten so bad that the people finally cried out.
Well, when they did
Or
cry
king,
out,
Yeah,
That's why through the tail end of Judges, you see there was no king in Israel at that time.
right. We get to that, yeah, at the
Yeah.
very end.
Oh,
But anyway.
Am I ahead of you?
Huh?
Am I getting ahead of you?
Yeah, I
No.
wasn't gonna go that far today.
No.
I was gonna just kind of get through this thing with the Philistines, because I think that was, you know, when you do all of that in there, and you start looking at what was happening, they actually took the ark out and put it out in a field. It was in their territory, but they took it out of their temple and just put it out in the field. And then it ended up, like, what was it? Ended up for like 25 years in somebody's yard or something. Just a minute. I didn't memorize that.
Well, on his property, yeah.
Huh?
On his property.
Yeah.
on his yard.
so this makes,
Huh?
I'll bring it up in a minute.
So, but the idea of this, there was still power in that ark, and so when they got rid of it, I guess their troubles didn't end. They still had troubles, but they didn't have the power of that ark sitting in there and seeing that the gods that they were worshiping were overwhelmed of it. Because when it says the gods in Egypt that, you know, did this to the pharaohs, the gods, they didn't look at it as one god. They were looking at it as a whole, like they had. So their time with it was long enough to get it out of there and put it in a field. And let's see. Then I jumped so far ahead on myself on this.
It's hard to skim through this like this, isn't it, John? You don't
Yeah.
know what to leave out, right?
I'm trying not to leave out anything.
It's all tied together.
Yeah. And so, where is it at? So like, actually when it says the Ark of Elohim was captured, the two sons, the two priests, died at that time. Or they were killed in the battle, and so it kind of shows you pretty much the priests were always protected when you think about it. Aaron went his way by the natural cause of the Creator, and Eleazar went his natural way. And so I don't know if all of these years if it's the same Phinehas that took Eleazar's son. It doesn't appear to be, but he was still a priest, and his name was Phinehas, and so we get repetitions of names in the scriptures. And so if we're reading down in there, and this is a part that we need to look at, and so here was this guy that had died, the priest that was in charge died. He was there for 40 years. The priest, the father of the sons, when he found out his sons were killed, he died. And he had been there for 40 years. And then his wife that was barren has a child born, and she was only like 6 months. And his name is Ichabod. And you want to remember that. And the esteem was departed from Israel because the Ark of Elohim was taken, and because of her father-in-law and her husband. And she said, the esteem has departed from Israel, for the Ark of Elohim was taken. So this is all the result on their side of what was taken. And they lost 2 priests, the father of the priest, and the Ark of the Covenant. Okay? Okay, so then when you get into chapter 5.
So as a reminder now, as we're wading through this, the tablets were still, the second tablets were still in this ark at this time?
Yes, they're always in this ark. And we even look at one part back when they were, I'm trying to remember what it was. Somebody even looked in the ark and they were just looking, huh?
Chronicles,
Okay,
when they put it in the Torah.
yeah, I didn't go
Right.
into Chronicles, I'm not gonna do Chronicles.
Right.
But I'll go up into the king, we'll take the ark up into the Kings, okay, because that's where most of it is Chronicles, just as a repeat of it, but anyway.
So these tablets were written on by the finger of Yah.
Yes, these are the tablets that Moses, and he put them in a box. There's no lid on it. We know there's no lid on it because everybody could see the tablets inside of it. And like in the one instance, the guy looked in there and he died, I guess he died, got tumors and died or something. So we know that there was no lid on it, but we also know that the Ark of the Witness, the testimony, was overlaid with gold. And it was entirely overlaid with gold, and it had the two cherubim. And the pictures that we see of those cherubim don't fit the description of what they should look like. They should have come together and covered the entire thing. And David got me on this thing years ago about when we think of wings, we think of birds. Think of some of the things that have wings, that have four wings, that actually can put their wings together and come back and they can cover themselves and they look like little people in there. And I think that they should have looked like a butterfly. I think that's what the cherubims looked like. The wings they had were more of that kind. Because you have wings of that matter. And I think David, he's probably thought of that too. We talked about it before. Huh? And so this is another thing. The pictures that we get of this, when we're reading this, the pictures that we get sometimes relate from the pictures that we've seen in these drawings. And when in some of the scriptures, you got a picture of the tabernacle and it shows the little dots where everything's at. And it shows a picture of the priest carrying the Ark of the Covenant, the Ark of the Witness with the cherubim on it. That doesn't fit the scriptures because it was completely covered up, and the only thing that was exposed was the handles for the priest to pick up, and it always had to be held by men, never in a wagon. This was transported in a wagon at the end, see? When we get into it, we'll see that. So we have to, the part that I'm getting at with part of this is putting this into the picture of what's really being said, and try to get those things that people have told us, like I mentioned it before, and I had tried to get 2 or 3 people to do this, but nobody can figure out how to do it. But when he describes the menorah, he describes it as an almond tree, and he describes it as a branch that has 3 blossoms and 3 bowls, 3 knobs, 3 blossoms, and 3 bowls on each branch, and 4 on the middle branch. And it has a reflector behind it. Have you ever seen anything like that in the drawings?
No.
You don't. Because man put it in their line. This is, well, okay, we can do this. We'll put a knot here. That's a ball. And we'll put a knot here, and then we'll put one up here, and we'll put a thing on it, and we got a menorah. It was a lampstand, and he gave a very exact description on how he wanted it built, and nobody ever seen it. Because I think those were covered when they carried it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wasn't it? Doesn't
Yeah.
it say they covered them?
Yeah.
The table, the altar of incense, everything was covered. So nobody ever seen this except the high priest. And all those high priests didn't have cameras. No Polaroids, nothing. They didn't even draw sketches of it because they probably didn't have the ability to do something like that. So anyway, we're going to stop here. It's 10 minutes, 5 minutes till. Stop here on this, and we'll pick it up in the week after. I don't think I'm going to be here next week, but if I'm not, we'll pick it up the following week. Then we'll carry this out to where we need to finish with this Ark of the Covenant. But the important thing we got to remember: there's 2 arks, and don't get them mixed up. Johnny, I know you got an armful.
I do, man. I gotta tell you, man. I gotta tell you. How many people in here are still get confused on 2 arks? Yeah, okay. All right. And it's been a while. I've listened to David, I've listened to John, I've listened to David, I've listened to John, I've read. You heard me stumble as I was reading through the scripture, thinking something else. But let me tell you what Yah shared with me this morning. The broken tablets, and correct me if I'm wrong, gentlemen, the broken tablets were the ones that were in the tabernacle in the Holy of Holies, right?
In the Ark of the Witness.
That's
what
the-
the Ark was made for.
Okay.
It's witness or
In
testimony.
in the golden ark, inside the Holy of Holies, underneath the cherubim, underneath the mercy seat, the broken covenant was stored.
Yes.
Yes, it's.
That's how to remember. The broken covenant was hidden in the Holy of Holies.
Because as John brought up, it was there for a purpose.
Right.
It's, as I've said before, if I'm Moses coming down the mountain and I see this calf and I, drop these tablets and break them, I'm not gonna leave them there. That's just me personally.
Well, and
But then on the other hand, he was already instructed, with these tablets that you bring down, they go into this ark.
Right.
into this witness, this is a witness.
And so, if I'm Moses and I remember those instructions, it's like, okay, I better pick up these pieces and put them in there, because it represents the transgression of the golden calf.
Well, you have to-
Okay.
Yeah, you have to remember, see, when the first time we hear about a witness is the manna. Put the manna in a jar for a witness.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay? Nobody knew what the witness was. They didn't
Right.
know this is a witness, right?
Right.
So when they built, that ark wasn't built when he came down the mountain with the tablets either.
Right.
It was built afterwards.
No, the ark,
The second
the,
set.
The Ark of the Covenant,
yeah,
or I mean, the Ark of the Witness was already built.
all the instructions
Yeah,
were already there.
All the instructions were
Yeah.
there.
Yeah,
well,
but
anyway.
it wasn't together. Yeah.
So, but that's why because a witness and testimony is the same thing.
Oh, okay,
It's
so-
against the people. This is to show the people the power of the Creator and who He is. That manna didn't stop until they went in the land and
Right.
they did the first Passover. They didn't do Passover for 38 years in the wilderness. They did it the second year when they were in the second year, but they didn't do it again until they went into the land. And
Right.
that's when the manna stopped.
Right. Okay, so the broken covenant is hidden in the Holy of Holies underneath the mercy seat. And anytime it moves, it's covered up so that nobody can see it, nobody knows what it's like. It's hidden.
Right.
That
The whole
broken
thing,
covenant,
yeah.
that broken covenant gets renewed.
Well, sure it is. It's already, it's renewed, it's new again, it's made new again on a better level. Okay?
But it was
It's the
hidden
same
until it
covenant,
was,
yeah.
but it was hidden until it was renewed,
Yeah.
right?
Right, and that covenant, it still hasn't been renewed yet, but it's going to be. Okay? Part of it is with Yeshua, but you gotta remember, he's coming back again, so.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when he circumcises everybody's hearts, and then that's when that renewed covenant, it's gonna be the same covenant. But it's gonna be brought, just like what was Yeshua. He was the walking, living,
Torah.
breathing Torah, okay? If you wanna put it that way. He was the Creator himself manifested as a man. So he knew it. He didn't, there was no guessing or whatever. He knew it, okay? And he walked it, he did it, he did everything right. When he circumcised our hearts, we're gonna be the same way. We're gonna be able to do it without thinking, it just automatically is. But anyway, going back to that, Aaron's rod's in there. And that's another witness. That's a witness against the people, that this is the man, this is about who I chose. It's giving you a picture, if you could read it, of the time of Yeshua, because this is who I chose to represent me. Aaron represented him, and Aaron did what? He served Yahuwah. That's what his job was, to serve Yahuwah. And the priest served Aaron so that he could serve the priest, to do Yahuwah, okay, serve Yahuwah.
Well, I just saw it this morning as Yah protecting the broken covenant until he renewed it.
Yeah, and and like I told you, those arks are two witnesses. One of them is that covenant was man's witness. This is what I wrote, and you're going to carry it around in a box, and it's going to be stuck to you. Now we don't know where that thing ever went. I've never seen it come out of
Yeah, but
That's why-
you always said you
Huh?
thought you knew, you always said you thought you knew where it went.
Oh, no, the Ark of the Witness, I know where it's
Yeah,
at.
okay.
The Ark of the Witnesses is in the heavens, because, and
Still
so is the
hidden.
tabernacle. And that's pretty well hidden, you don't get much better than that, because if you read Revelations, John saw it. And he says, he saw the altar of incense, with the incense going up as like the prayers from the saints up over the mercy seat to the Creator. So, where would that be? That would be in the heavens, right? That would be the Holy of Holies. Right?
That's where it
Everybody
was.
agree? You agree, I know you
Yeah, that's
agree.
where it was.
And so anyway, that Ark of the Covenant is out there in the world somewhere, but nobody wanted it. I think that there's power in it. I don't think it's just disappeared somewhere. It's still out there somewhere. Anyway, with that, unless there's any other questions, if somebody wants to throw a tomato, because I didn't eat today.
Here,
It's
John.
time?
Receive blessing.
That hurt.
All right.